You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining us for another weekly update with Global Trade This Week. I am Keenan Brugh here with ICOSA Media and Cap Logistics, and with me today, as always, when I'm subbing in, Doug Draper. How are you doing today?
Keenan, I'm rocking and rolling. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. You're our resident stand-in with Pete on quote unquote assignment. So this is a weekly show. It's in the title, so we have to do it weekly, and we're glad to have you here again. Thanks.
Well, I always love learning from you both with your tremendous perspectives and insights and experience over the years in different aspects of logistics and supply chain. And I'm constantly reading and trying to learn along the way. So brought some ideas here I'm excited to discuss with you. But first off here today, let's go ahead and have you kick it off with topic number one.
Awesome. So this one, Keenan, it won't be the first time that we talk about the holiday season. Fourth quarter is about to hit us right in the face at the end of this week. So excuse me. So my topic is about the holiday season for 2021. I think the best way to describe that is simply with the two words, yard sale. And what I mean by that is a little bit different than the traditional discussion we have on supply chain. But here's the my thought process. Supply chain's a mess. Things are delayed, yada, yada, yada. We've talked about it multiple times. But what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a lot of holiday purchases on the local and neighborhood swap sites. I think a lot of people are familiar with Nextdoor. There's also one in my neighborhood called the Swap. And then you're going to have some other sites like Etsy. So basically, I think you're going to have a lot of parents. They're going to go out there and buy stuff that's local, reuse, repurpose, the whole 9 yards, because they're not going to have a wrapped gift underneath the Christmas tree in time with the supply chains. So the funny thing, I was thinking about this, Keenan, this morning, and what that's really going to do is define the two types of parents that are in the world. There's going to be the parents that are the IOU kids, right? So they're going to get a little note card underneath the Christmas tree, which may or may not work if you're a 6-year-old kid. But essentially, they didn't plan. They didn't think the supply chain was that in turmoil because they may not be living it day to day like you are. So there's going to be the IOU parents. So there'll be a lot of cards that kids open up over the holidays. And then there'll be the kids that are, hey, look at my new craft kids, which means the parents understood it and they bought products from the local swap websites. And so they're going to be coming to school as a 6-year-old with a new sweater, which they're not going to understand why that is and where is the truck or the video game underneath the tree. But I think that is something that we're going to see, that there's going to be a lot of repurposing of toys that you're going to find from your neighbors that are on site. So here's the cool thing is that I think that means Johnny and Sally are like, go take your quarters, your stick, and your can and go outside and play and entertain yourselves, not in front of a TV. So anyway, it'll be a little bit unique with Christmas and the holidays this year. And I think you'll see some articles written about it as time draws near. So there you go. Yard sale, holiday season 2021.
When you describe the kids going out and playing, I'm imagining the old-timey kids rolling a hoop with a stick down the road type of deal. And I think you bring up a great point where people who aren't in the supply chain and logistics, they've seen a little disruption, but ultimately they're still used to things working a certain way. Just earlier this week, I was added to kind of a gift exchange app type thing. And people were complaining like, why are you texting this so early? There's months and months until Christmas. I think that is pervasive. A lot of people are expecting it to kind of be like normal. Oh, I can order something off the internet and it'll be delivered in a week or two or whatever. And they may not be expecting multi-factor crunch coming in on different fronts. So there may be more creative gifts. Some things may be available that they can buy here locally. Otherwise, it may be, like you're saying, I like the idea of the yard sales, those apps. I'm sure people use Facebook or Nextdoor, all those different things. It might look a little different this year than some years in the past.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. So
not a bad thing. Hopefully we as individuals can all learn, but I'm looking forward to businesses and supply chains reevaluating their business strategies. And we've talked about this before, and going away from just the just in time and having a little bit more resiliency in what their supply chains look like, so that those businesses are successful, but ultimately that makes the economy more robust, rather than one small thing stops, this summer with a shipping container stuck in the Suez, like you recently just rediscussed with Pete, or any other factors that are coming out of China or elsewhere that have huge knock-on effects. Hopefully we can build some more resiliency, or as Nassim Taleb calls the anti-fragility, maybe this type of stuff can actually make our economy, our logistics system, our businesses even stronger. That's the hope. Yeah. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, for sure. So for our listeners out there, I would challenge you guys on our comment section when we post this on LinkedIn. Tell us, are you an IOU parent or an Etsy and enjoy the sweater type of parent? So I'd be curious to see. So make some comments.
I wonder if that is going to depend on age. A 6-year-old may not accept an IOU as much as a 12-year-old. If it's a bike, you could wait a couple months for a bike as a 12-year-old, less so for a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Well, I don't know a better segue to go from children's toys to fertilizer.
Naturally related.
We'll just make the leap. So tell us about your topic.
Yeah, so there actually are some connections, while it's very different from Christmas and, toys and that sort of things. I've been seeing more and more, and some of this has been a slow-moving train wreck, and some of it's happening a little bit faster, but there's some crunches in the fertilizer production around the world. What I saw was a major plant in the European Union shutting down over costs of natural gas as an input in making ammonia fertilizer, the N and the NPK, right? And that is a major driver of what grows food. And so as you're seeing different supply issues on the fuel side, or fuel is getting more expensive, you end up getting thinner and thinner profit margins for these agricultural producers. And some of them are just shutting their doors, which maybe that'll mean a little bit higher profits for the ones who can stay in business because there's going to be demand for it. But it also might just mean that the price of that fertilizer is going to go up, and we may see some surprises of what farms are paying, what food and beverage producers are paying, and ultimately what consumers are paying. There's been lots of talk about inflation and just on the monetary side of things, but this is more on the production and what it costs to make the food and then move the food. We may see more and more coming down the line there in the future. Another part that saw come across my desk just this morning with China. So they had the Evergrande, the construction company, kind of having some contagion of debts and things like that going on in the Asian stock markets, affecting stock markets around the world. In looking at a FreightWaves updates today, they're mostly talking about how that's impacting shipping and shipping stocks. But one little piece they mentioned in there is that China, as a political party, as a country, is going to be intervening in bulk commodity trades. And I saw a tweet from an expert in phosphate, a different type of fertilizer, but very much important for fruit and veggies and all sorts of production. China is effectively banning their phosphate exports through at least June of 2022. And so according to this analyst, China makes up for about 30% of the world trade in that particular fertilizer input. And so if they're just surprising all the markets and stopping exporting, that's going to have impacts on these prices as well. So you're getting hit from the nitrogen side, you're getting hit from the phosphate side. And I know America and Canada and South America does produce as well. It may still impact prices if 30% is being impacted. And then especially people who are closer to China, depending on that input, countries like Australia may see dramatic increases in prices, because even if they had an alternative, they could order from Canada, US, South America somewhere. We're going to have to now ship it way further than they were previously shipping it from China. So it's tough to say exactly what will happen, but I'm watching various crunches on the fertilizer input side of things and wondering what that might mean for food and food prices coming down the pike here in the next year or two.
Yeah. You know, that one thing that you said that caught my attention was input, right? So there's input and output. So the input is going to have a bigger effect on us because it is indirect with the food, right? I know that organic operations and farming is growing in popularity, but there's still a lot that use fertilizer to help grow. So the input to make the fertilizer to help our crops grow, that's a great point. Does that mean food's going to be a little bit more expensive? You can't delay a season. So if you miss fruit season or vegetable season, it is what it is. So I think the input was a good word. I think most people, when they hear fertilizer, think of the output, which is my grass going to be green next spring? and what do I do as me? And how does it directly impact me in my yard, right? That's initially what I thought whenever you were talking. But I think the input, although it's not direct, it's going to have a greater impact. And the fact, a big deal is that you don't change the seasons. There is a growing season for all the food that we eat. And if you miss it, you miss it. And there could be increased food shortages or an increase in the shortage, which could be an increase in price. So that's an interesting one, Keenan. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, it's just interesting watching all the different pieces moving at the same time. Costs of shipping are changing. Finances, inflation, or monetary situations are going on, and then it's going to be interesting, like you mentioned, with the seasons coming on. There's always things like a storm here. Last year we had the derechos in the Midwest, Iowa, and elsewhere, and you never quite know where those things are. But the combination of all those factors leads to an interesting outcome we can't 100% predict, but it has my attention for sure.
Yeah, good. Well, I know we normally have a halftime on these shows, and that's whenever we thank Cap Logistics for putting this thing together. You are Cap Logistics and ICOSA Media, so I'm going to thank you in person, on screen, virtually. But Keenan and I decided to say, let's do 3 topics. We each have our own, and coincidentally, the 4th topic that we are coming with was very similar. So we said, let's scrap halftime and let's jump into our 3rd topic, which will be our final topic for today. So, Keenan, I'll probably have you jump in and start, and then I'll chime in related. But it's all about big box retailers, specifically Costco. So, give us your take on it, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, they were kind of coinciding, and I think that makes sense from the order. I was in Costco a couple weeks ago. And, middle of summer, end of summer, they had 0 toilet paper. And they talked about having trucks backed up. And, I thought, okay, they're having some scheduling issues. They haven't gotten the stock resupplied yet on a short-term basis. But then I was seeing their 4th quarter earnings call. Their CFO is anticipating much more systemic shortages in paper products like paper towels, bathroom tissue, as well as items like water, bottled water, and all sorts of cleaning supplies because of their anticipation of an increase with the Delta variant. So it's not just the truck wasn't able to make it in, like I first heard from the people at Costco. The CFO is predicting more systemic shortages, and or they're proactively, maybe they've learned some lessons, they're proactively rationing or kind of controlling how many of certain items individuals or individual families are able to buy in order to give more people access. So it's a little bit of more rationing type of scenario, which is unique as an American consumer, but also maybe a little bit wise in seeing what could be coming down. And in order to get through this, we're going to implement this as a company. So kind of escalated compared to what I saw a few weeks ago. It seems like more will be coming this fall and winter.
Yeah. Well, whenever you say the word rationing, that basically equals panic buying, right? So we'll have to see how this thing goes. But I think I was reading a similar article, just kind of on the flip side of it. And we spoke about this maybe a month or so ago. And I referred to it as either the big baller or gangster move by, Walmart and Home Depot and IKEA to some degree, where they're kind of done with it. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And so the news that Costco was going to rent 3 vessels, and they're going to be renting some containers themselves. And I think they said that each vessel was going to make 10 trips in the next year. So if you take 3 vessels times 10 trips, they were going to throw about 1,000 containers per voyage. So we're looking at 30,000 containers that they just took control over and get it in the system. So it's another example of vertical integration and kind of what I refer to as owning the rails. If you own the rails, you have a lot more control. And we've seen these big box guys, go forward. And then I was thinking, what does that mean for you start thinking about what some other large retailers. I was thinking of Kohl's, maybe like Dick's Sporting Goods, those type of guys. But here's the difference, right? If you go through Costco, Home Depot, Walmart, there's a lot of big items, especially with Home Depot and Costco and Walmart, Sam's Club. It's big, right? And so it takes up a lot of space. And IKEA with furniture, so it kind of makes sense to control it and bring it in. The other retailers, I thought of Kohl's, but a lot of it's soft goods and sweaters and pants and shirts and that nature. So even with the size and the scope of somebody like Kohl's or other garment, to charter and rent, if you will, your own vessel, even though it's a lot of volume, it may not justify it because the commodities and the products are not large. So I think that you may see a little bit more air freight from those guys where it's justifiable to air freight 10,000 t-shirts. So I don't think that justifies any type of building the rails. So I think if you can think of a retailer that has big stuff that takes up a lot of space, you may see this again. But I don't think it's going to roll into garments and soft goods. But yeah, Costco, Walmart, Home Depot, IKEA, they're just done. They're mad as hell. They're not going to take it anymore.
And that's interesting. They're in a position where they're big enough to actually be able to make some moves like these, where some other smaller companies, they just may not be able to do the same thing, and they're just at the whim of what the costs and costs all in and shipping included are. And so they're going to either need to start manufacturing in the US, Canada, Mexico, stop selling certain items, shift businesses. Yeah, it's interesting to see what these big boxes are doing, what they can do. And yeah, it just also makes me curious about all the other smaller businesses that can't quite do what they're doing, but are still being impacted by the same forces that led all these larger box stores to try to take over their parts of the supply chain shipping wise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think, somebody was, discussing, well, does that mean IKEA and Walmart are going to turn into freight forwarders and sell their capacity? And I think the answer is nope. They're not going to do that because that's their differentiation to get in there. Hey, Walmart has what you're looking for and other retailers don't. So if there's thoughts or comments about, hey, these big guys are going to start selling some of their capacity, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But we'll wait and see. So should be interesting.
It will be interesting. Well,
yeah.
Thanks again, Doug. I really appreciate everything you and Pete bring to the table with the research, the insights, and getting us thinking about what's going on right now this week, but really with the mindset of what could this mean in the future. So appreciate our discussion here today.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we always talk about, hey, this is very impromptu. And I mean, that's true. I mean, literally, Keenan, about 45 seconds before we started the show, you're like, hey, here's what I'm going to talk about. So, we're engaged. You have to listen to what you're saying to have an intelligent response. So, again, for our audience, this is just kind of off the cuff, and we're out there having a good time. So, and last thing I go before we sign off is make comments to see if you're an IOU parent or a swap type of parent. So make some comments, engage. We love to hear your feedback. So next week, I think Pete will be back in the saddle. And until then, again, I can't thank Cap Logistics enough for giving us the platform to have this show every week. Keenan, you are a huge part of that. So thanks for doing double duty today. It's much appreciated. And I'd like to thank our audience for listening to us as always, and hope you guys have a phenomenal week. And we'll see you next week on Global Trade This Week.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care, Keenan. Thank you.
See ya.